From the time I could talk, I was asking questions. I grew up in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone, and my folks ran the local diner. It was in this bustling little eatery that I found my first audience. "Emma, you're gonna drive all my customers away with your pestering," my dad would joke as I grilled his regulars on their thoughts about everything from the mayor's new policies to the high school football team's latest game. My mom, always the supporter of my curiosities, handed me a toy microphone one Christmas. "Here, maybe this will make it more official," she chuckled. And boy, did I take it to heart. Every evening, our living room transformed into my personal newsroom. My dolls, lined up on the couch, became my first interviewees, each assigned a role, from the town doctor to the local librarian. But it wasn't long before I started roping in real people. "Grandma, do you think cookies should be allowed in the library?" I asked one day, my toy microphone up to her face as she sat knitting by the fireplace. "Child, if they let cookies in there, I'd live at the library," she replied, playing along. My grandpa wasn't spared either. After retiring from the factory, he loved to sit on the porch, whittling wood. "Grandpa, what's your take on the mayor's plan to renovate the old mill?" I'd quiz, standing with my notebook at the ready. "Damn fool if you ask me. Throwing good money after bad," he'd grumble, not looking up from his carving. These early interviews might have been child's play, but they sparked something in me, a love for storytelling and uncovering the truth. School didn't do much to quench this thirst. Instead, it gave me a platform. High school brought real opportunities, the school paper. Suddenly, I wasn't just a kid with a toy mic, I was Emma Hayes, junior reporter. I covered school board meetings, interviewed new teachers, and reported on every bake sale and book drive. By the time I graduated, I had a clear plan. I was going to go to college, study journalism, and become a professional reporter. Nothing could sway me. My heart was set, and my path was clear. As I packed up my stuff for college, my mom handed me a new, real microphone, a step up from the toy I had as a kid. "For your first real interview at college," she said, her eyes a mix of pride and sadness as her little girl was leaving the nest. "Thanks, Mom. I'll make you proud. I promise." And as I drove off to college, I knew I was stepping into a future I'd dreamed of since I was a girl with a fake microphone and a head full of questions. College was a blur of late nights, strong coffee, and endless stories. I dove into journalism headfirst, hungry for every bit of experience I could get. By the time I graduated, I wasn't just ready to take on the world of news, I was itching for it. Landing my first job at a local newspaper was like stepping into a dream. The office was chaotic, papers everywhere, phones ringing nonstop, and there I was, smack in the middle of it, eager as ever. "Hey, Emma, you're covering the city council meeting tonight. Don't screw this up, newbie," my editor barked on my first day. He was a grizzled old journalist named Frank, who'd seen it all and wasn't easy to impress. "Got it, Frank. I won't let you down," I replied, clutching my notepad like a lifeline. That night, I scribbled notes furiously, determined to capture every word. The next morning, Frank tossed a copy of the newspaper on my desk. My article was front and center. "Not bad for a start, kid. Keep this up, and you might just make a name for yourself." I grinned, feeling a swell of pride. I was on my way. From city politics to local festivals, I covered it all. But it wasn't just about attending events and writing reports, it was about digging deeper, finding the story beneath the story. One chilly afternoon, while covering a local business conference, I bumped into a man in a sharp suit who looked lost. "Excuse me, ma'am, can you point me to the panel on economic development?" he asked, looking around confused. "Follow me, I'm headed that way myself." "So, what's your interest in economic development?" I asked, sensing another story. "I own a tech startup. We're trying to figure out if this town's ripe for our next expansion," he explained as we walked. That conversation turned into a front-page feature on how small towns were attracting tech entrepreneurs. The story caught fire, and suddenly, I wasn't just a reporter, I was Emma Hayes, the voice of our evolving small town. With each story, my reputation grew. I moved from the local paper to a regional magazine, where the stakes were higher, and the stories more impactful. Emma, I need you on the entertainment beat this month. There's a film festival coming up, and I want behind-the-scenes scoops, not just fluff. My new editor, Sheila, instructed. No fluff, got it. I'll dig up something good, I assured her, eager to prove myself in the new arena. At the festival, I caught wind of a dispute between a well-known director and a young actor. Instead of just covering the event's glitz and glam, I found myself mediating and interviewing both parties. Why should I talk to you? You're just gonna twist my words, the director snapped when I approached him. Look, I'm here to give you a fair shot to tell your side. I'm not in the business of twisting anything, I shot back, not backing down. He eyed me warily, then sighed. Fine. Let's have it then. But I'm watching you, reporter. The article was a hit. It painted a complex picture of the challenges in the film industry, far from the usual red carpet coverage. Readers loved the insight, and my phone was buzzing with compliments and more tips for stories. Emma, that piece on the festival was stellar. You're making waves, kid. Keep at it, Sheila said, a rare smile cracking her usual stern demeanor. With every article, every interview, I felt like I was building not just a career, but a legacy. The more stories I told, the more I realized how much there was to tell, and I wasn't going to stop. Being a recognized face in journalism, especially as someone stirring up the local scene, got me invites to every highbrow event in town. But it was at a charity gala dedicated to raising funds for children with cancer where my life took an unexpected turn. That night, draped in a simple yet elegant black dress, I was ready to cover the event, not knowing it would lead me into the personal story of my life. I was sipping on some sparkling water when he approached me, Michael Sterling, a name synonymous with generosity in our community through his work with his charitable foundation. Emma Hayes, right? I've seen you on TV. You're much more beautiful in person, he said, flashing a smile that I later learned had won over countless donors and supporters. Thanks, Michael. Your foundation's work is impressive. It's not every day you see such dedication, I replied, genuinely admiring what I believed was his commitment. The connection was instant. His charm wasn't just surface deep, or so I thought. He was knowledgeable, witty, and seemed genuinely interested in making a difference. We talked the entire evening, about everything from journalism to the intricacies of running a nonprofit. As we started dating, he introduced me to his mother, Victoria Sterling, the co-founder of the charity and an imposing figure with a steely gaze. I've heard a lot about the entertainment on television these days, she remarked during our first meeting, her tone suggesting disapproval. Television has all sorts, Mrs. Sterling. I stick to telling stories that matter, I responded with a shrug, trying not to let her obvious skepticism get to me. Our relationship blossomed despite Victoria's icy demeanor. Michael was adept at smoothing over any awkwardness, always there with a compliment or a thoughtful gesture. After a year of whirlwind romance, we got married in a small, elegant ceremony. Married life meant more involvement in Michael's charity. I found myself covering their events, my public profile lending more visibility and credibility to their cause. Donations surged, and it felt good to think my work was contributing to something meaningful. As months rolled on, Victoria's sharp comments became more frequent, especially when we were alone. I saw your last piece on the mayor's housing policy. Be careful, Emma. People don't always appreciate the truth. You might find yourself less popular if you stir the pot too much. Isn't the truth the point of journalism, Mrs. Sterling? I countered, my patience wearing thin. Just remember, marriage is about compromise, including how you carry yourself in public, she advised, a clear warning thinly veiled as maternal concern. I nodded, biting back the retort that sprang to my lips. Michael, ever the mediator, would later smooth things over, telling me, "She means well, Emma. She's just set in her ways. Let's not ruffle feathers." So, I continued, my career intertwined more deeply with the charity than I ever intended. At every event, smiling beside Michael, part of me wondered if the smiles we wore were just another mask for the cameras. But I shook off the doubts, focusing on the good we were purportedly doing. Buying the house with Michael felt like the last piece of our perfect life puzzle clicking into place. It was a beautiful, sprawling property with gardens that could have been torn from a magazine cover. I walked through the rooms, envisioning the laughter of children echoing through the halls, the kind of dreamy future I'd always hoped for. But Michael threw cold water on that dream quickly. "Emma, let's not rush into kids. We've got so much going on, and with the charity taking off, it's just not the right time," he said one evening as we unpacked the last of our boxes. I tried to hide my disappointment. "Sure, I get that. We can wait," I replied, tucking away my hopes like the linens I was storing in our new oak cupboard. As the days turned into months, the house felt less like a home and more like a beautiful stage set. The real act played out every Sunday at dinner with Michael's mother, Victoria, who perfected her role as the doting mother-in-law in public, only to reveal her true character behind closed doors. One such Sunday, as we sat around the lavish dining table laden with fine china and crystal, Victoria started in on me, her words sharp and precise. "Emma, darling, I saw your last interview. It's a wonder you managed to keep your job, laughing like that on air. You sounded like a nervous schoolgirl." Her words stung, and I felt Michael stiffen beside me. But instead of coming to my defense, he only nodded in agreement with his mother. "Mom's right, Emma. You need to be more polished. This isn't some college news show." I swallowed the lump forming in my throat, forcing a smile. "I'll work on it, Victoria. Thanks for the feedback," I managed to say, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. As these dinners became a recurring play of subtle jabs and overt criticisms, I began to dread them. Every critique from Victoria was a needle to my confidence, and Michael's complacency only twisted it deeper. After one particularly harsh dinner where Victoria had criticized everything from my cooking to my conversational skills, I found myself sobbing in our pristine bathroom, the marble countertops cold under my hands. The next morning, my eyes puffy from tears, I faced Michael in the kitchen. "Does it really not bother you, what your mother says?" I asked, hoping for some sign of support. "Look, Emma, she's my mother. She means well. You need to toughen up. This industry, our social circles, they're brutal. If you can't handle her, how will you handle real adversaries?" he said, not meeting my eye. I was silenced by his words, the implication clear, I was on my own in this. As he left the room, the finality of our conversation hung heavy in the air. It was an ordinary Thursday morning when my mother-in-law showed up unannounced at our door, her face set in a determination that usually spelled trouble for me. "Emma, dear, we need to chat. It's urgent," she said, sweeping past me into the living room with the air of someone who owned the place. Once we were seated, she didn't waste time. "The foundation is in a tight spot financially. We've got a charity evening coming up, and I want you to spearhead it. It'll be attended by some very influential patrons," she declared, her tone brooking no argument. I was taken aback. "Me? Victoria, I've never organized anything on that scale before." "Oh, you'll learn. Besides, with your public image and the trust you've garnered, you're the perfect face for the event. Think of this as broadening your horizons," she said, a sharp glint in her eye that I couldn't quite read. The conversation felt loaded, her intentions wrapped in layers I couldn't peel back just then. "All right, I'll do my best," I agreed reluctantly, feeling the weight of her expectations pressing down on me. "Excellent. Oh, and while you're up, could you set the table for lunch? I'm famished," Victoria added, dismissing me to the kitchen as if I were a maid in my own house. As I left to fetch the plates and cutlery, I realized I'd forgotten my phone on the coffee table. Just as I was about to go back for it, I heard their voices, Victoria and Michael, murmuring in the living room. Curiosity pinned me in place, just out of sight. She's so beloved by the public, it's the perfect setup. Once we get her to take over, we can execute the transfer, and then when everything collapses, it'll be Emma left holding the bag," Victoria explained with a cold laugh that chilled me to the bone. The plan was horrifyingly clear. They intended to use me as a scapegoat for whatever shady dealings they were embroiled in. A tightness gripped my chest, but I forced myself to walk away, to prepare lunch as if nothing had happened. At the table, I played the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law, smiling and nodding while my mind raced with the betrayal. The food tasted like ash in my mouth, but I kept my facade intact. That night, Michael was his usual, detached self, not once betraying the conversation I wasn't meant to hear. I lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling, the darkness around us a mirror to the bleakness settling in my heart. "What's on your mind, Emma? You've been quiet all evening," he finally asked, some semblance of concern threading his voice. "Just thinking about the charity event. It's a big responsibility, you know?" I said, keeping my voice neutral, hiding the storm inside. "You'll do great. You always do," he replied, and turned over. The conversation closed. But sleep eluded me. I got up, pacing the silent house, grappling with the enormity of their deceit. How could I, known for my integrity, become entangled in their web of lies? How deep did this betrayal run, and how could I protect myself? I woke up with a heavy heart but a determined mind. After Michael left for the office, I immediately called Lisa, my old college friend who had become a sharp-witted lawyer. "Lisa, it's Emma. I need to talk, something serious," I said as soon as she picked up. "What's going on, Em? You sound stressed." Lisa's voice was full of concern. "It's Michael and his mother. I overheard them planning to use me as a scapegoat for embezzling funds from their charity," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Emma, that's serious. But without hard evidence, accusing them could backfire on you," she cautioned. "I know, and with the charity event coming up, I barely have time to breathe, let alone play detective. Let me help. I know someone experienced with charity events. He can take over the planning, which will free you up to gather evidence," Lisa offered. "That would be a lifesaver," I sighed in relief, grateful for her swift support. "Don't worry, I'll handle the event side. You focus on digging up what you can," she assured before hanging up. With the event in capable hands, I turned my attention to gathering evidence. I knew Michael's office was at the charity's headquarters, but he often worked from his home office, where he kept a duplicate of all his work files. Lucky for me, I knew his password. It was our anniversary date. Once inside his office, the search was meticulous. His computer was a goldmine. I found financial statements and email correspondences that confirmed the misuse of funds, and even references to fake charity cases. It was all there, black on white. I copied everything onto a USB stick. But I needed more than documents. I needed their own words against them. Remembering a small voice-activated recorder I had tucked away in a drawer, I decided it was time to use it. I placed it discreetly in the living room, hoping to catch any incriminating conversations. Over the next few days, while I was supposedly busy with event preparations, the recorder picked up more than I could have hoped for. Michael and Victoria didn't hold back, secure in their deception. One particular conversation chilled me to the bone. "I can't stand these events, pretending to care about these sick kids." Michael's voice dripped with disdain. "It's all for a good cause, the cause of filling our accounts." Victoria's cruel laughter followed. Their words, cold and clear, were the final nails in the coffin. They weren't just using the charity for money, they were utterly heartless. The night before the charity evening, Victoria came over to check on the preparations. "I hope everything is ready for tomorrow, Emma. Don't embarrass us," she warned, eyeing me like a hawk. "Everything's set. The guests will love what we've planned," I assured her with a calm I didn't feel. Her gaze lingered on me a moment longer before she nodded stiffly and left. Sleep was elusive as I played over the possible outcomes of tomorrow's revelations. By morning, a resolute calm had settled over me. Today would be the end of one chapter and, hopefully, the start of something cleaner, something honest. The grand ballroom was abuzz with the chatter of well-dressed guests, their eyes wide with admiration for the lavish decor and the noble cause they were gathered to support. As I watched from the wings, my stomach churned with nerves and determination. This evening would change everything. Victoria took the stage first, her voice resonant as she addressed the crowd. "Tonight, we celebrate the incredible progress we've made for these precious children," she said, gesturing to the large screen displaying the smiling faces of young beneficiaries. The room filled with applause, some guests wiping away tears at the touching display. Michael followed, his charm dialed up as he spoke passionately about the need for more funds. "Let's not just meet our goals, let's double them, for the sake of these children who rely on us," he implored, as the account details flashed on the screen. Text messages pinged around the room as guests received the donation instructions. Then it was my turn. My heart pounded as I took the stage, the microphone slightly trembling in my hand. "Thank you, everyone, for your incredible support," I began, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Before you proceed with your generous donations, I ask for just a few more minutes of your attention." I nodded to the technician offstage. As the first recording played through the speakers, a hush fell over the crowd. Michael's voice filled the room, cold and calculating, as he discussed using me as a scapegoat for stealing from the charity. A murmur of disbelief spread through the hall, growing louder as more recordings revealed the true nature of their so-called charity work. Victoria's laughter after discussing how they exploited the sick children sent a shiver through the audience. Then, with a click, the damning financial reports appeared on the screen, detailing years of embezzlement and deception. The room erupted. Angry voices clashed with cries of betrayal. "How could they?" someone shouted from the back. Michael, his face pale as paper, tried to slink away, but the police, already waiting in the wings on my cue, moved swiftly to detain him. Victoria, meanwhile, stood frozen, her eyes locked on mine, burning with fury. "This is why I hated you from the start," she hissed at me across the noise, her veneer of sophistication shattered. The guests were now demanding refunds, their previous admiration turning to scorn as they confronted my in-laws. The live broadcast on my social page was lighting up with comments, the viewership numbers skyrocketing as word of the scandal spread. My divorce from Michael was as clinical as it was quick, thanks to Lisa's relentless advocacy on my behalf. "You're going to start fresh, Emma, on your terms," she assured me as we signed the last of the papers, securing my half of the house. Michael and his mother faced a barrage of lawsuits from disillusioned patrons and long-standing supporters of the foundation. The courts didn't go easy on them, both were convicted of fraud. They ended up having to sell everything they owned to cover the settlements, but even that wasn't enough. They were left drowning in debts, a stark end to their fabricated empire of benevolence. In the aftermath, I threw myself into my work with renewed vigor. Armed with the truth, I conducted a deep-dive journalistic investigation into the dark underbelly of nonprofit organizations. My findings were eye-opening and sparked widespread debate, highlighting the vulnerabilities in charity operations. The report was broadcast on major networks, drawing attention and accolades from all corners of journalism. Inspired by the overwhelming response, I penned a book titled Living with a Monster. It detailed my personal ordeal and broader issues of trust and corruption in philanthropy. The book struck a chord with readers worldwide, quickly climbing the bestseller lists. One evening, as I sat in my new cozy apartment nestled in a friendly neighborhood, I reflected on my journey. The walls, lined with awards and tokens from my travels, seemed to echo back a life story of triumph and trials. My phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. "Emma, it's Lisa. I just finished your book. It's incredible. You've turned your pain into something profoundly impactful." Lisa's voice was thick with emotion. "Thanks, Lisa. It was hard reliving it all, but if my story can change one person's perspective or prevent this from happening to someone else, it was worth every word," I replied, feeling a sense of peace. Beyond the acclaim and the success, I found a deeper purpose. I donated a significant portion of my royalties to a new charitable foundation, one I thoroughly vetted and believed in. This foundation was everything the sterling sham had pretended to be: transparent, compassionate, and genuinely dedicated to helping children. As I planned my schedule around upcoming investigations and speaking engagements, I often paused at my window, looking out over the bustling street below. Life buzzed in its usual, unpredictable rhythm, and I felt in sync with it, more than ever. "Here's to new beginnings," I whispered to myself, a smile playing on my lips. The future was unwritten, and for the first time in a long time, that excited me. With each passing day, I was more certain of my path, not just as a journalist but as a voice for those who couldn't speak up against the injustice shadowing the vulnerable corners of our society.